Did you know the library is full of dirt? Join us this summer as we get the dirt, discovering interesting reading trails. There will be trails about pets, music, dirt diggers, and more. Today's Get the Dirt is about music. They're all different types of music. There's fast music, slow music, happy music, and sad music. What is your favorite type of music? Today when we get the dirt about music, we will be getting the dirt about an orchestra. Do you know what an orchestra is? Let's look in the dictionary to get the dirt on what the word orchestra means. You can find the dictionary in the 420s or reference section of the library. The student dictionary says an orchestra is a band of performers on various instruments. Here's where you can see where to find it. It's in the 420s. Do you play an instrument? There are all kinds of instruments. We're going to learn about some of them in the next few weeks. Did you know you can get a job playing music? Professional musicians can play with an orchestra or band, or they can be independent. A conductor directs the music, and there are many other jobs with music. We'll read about some of these jobs in one of our books today. Today we are going to read some fiction and some non-fiction books about orchestras. Do you know the difference between fiction and non-fiction books? A fiction book is about a story that is made up. A non-fiction book is about something true. You can find fiction books in the library by the first 3 letters of the author's last name. See this fiction book called The Fiddler's Secret? On the spine, it says J for juvenile. And this book is something that kids 16 and under might enjoy most. It also says J-O-H, which are the first 3 letters of the author's last name. Because it's part of a series, the Riverboat Adventures or Freedom Seekers, it may be listed under series as well. So be sure to ask your friendly librarian where to find it. The first book that we're going to read today is called First Book About the Orchestra. It is written by Sam Taplin and illustrated by Sean Longcroft. Let's look at the spine. Is this book fiction or nonfiction? Very good. Those numbers tell us that this book is nonfiction. Have you ever heard an orchestra? It's made up of lots of different musicians, but they all play this at the same time to make one amazing big sound. Before they start, everybody tunes up to get ready. Here are some of the wind musicians rehearsing. They play their instruments by blowing into them. Here's flutes, clarinets, and oboes. Here's a clarinet here. And then we also brought a flute. You play strings with a stick called a bow. These people are playing violins. And these are violas, which are slightly bigger than a violin. There are bigger stringed instruments too. They make lower sounds. These are cellos, and these are double basses. The brass musicians blow into their instruments to make a big, warm noise. French horns. Not everyone in the orchestra plays in tune all the time. Some people play the background for the tune. Here's some trumpets and trombones. Did you know an orchestra has drums too? They are called timpani, and they sound loud. These people are playing bassoons, trumpets, trombones, double basses. Here's the cellos. All the musicians have finished rehearsing, and it's time for the whole orchestra to play a concert. The conductor stands at the front to help everyone play at the same time. The audience goes quiet, he raises his hand, and then the music begins. We can see all the different parts of the instrument, of the orchestra. Here's the French horns, flutes, oboes, clarinets, bassoons, trumpets, trombones, timpani, double basses, cellos, violas, more violins, and violins. You can find more nonfiction books about the orchestra in the 784 section at the library. Our next book is called Berloy the Bear. It is written and illustrated by Jan Brett. Is it fiction or nonfiction? Yes, this book is fiction. It is listed in the picture books with a B for Brett and an E for easy. Buzz. Zum buzz. Berloy had been practicing for weeks, and now just when the orchestra was going to play in the village square for a gala ball, a strange buzz was coming from his double bass. Why now? Berloy said to himself. The musicians arrived with their instruments. As Berloy watched them climb aboard the bandwagon, all he could think about was his buzzing bass. What if his bass buzzed during the ball? What if the dancer stopped dancing and laughed at him? Zum buzz, he imagined. Berloy picked up the reins and clucked to the mule. Off they went down the road. He was so worried that he didn't see a hole in the road ahead. Suddenly, the wagon lurched to a stop. The front wheel was stuck in the hole. The mule took one look back, sat down, and yawned. "Oh dear," said Berloy, as he tried to get the mule to stand up and pull the bandwagon out of the hole. "What can we do? We'll be late for the ball." "I'll help you," said a rooster who was passing by on his way to the ball. "I'll just tug on the rope and pull you out," he bragged. The rooster pulled and pulled, but the mule stayed put. A tabby, who had been watching from on top of the fence, spoke up smugly. "That isn't a job for a featherweight," he purred. "I'll do it for you." And he took hold of the rope and pulled, but the mule wouldn't move. "Oh my," said Berloy, "at this rate we'll never get to the ball on time. Everyone put on your concert tailcoats so we'll be ready to start as soon as we get there." Just then, a schnauzer came trotting over the hill. He took one look at the cat and sniffed. "A furball like you can't pull a bandwagon? Here, let me have that rope." He panted and pulled, but the wagon stayed in the hole. Berloy handed out the music. "Everyone take out your instruments. We'll start tuning up here." Along came a prancing billy goat. He looked at the schnauzer and snorted. "Move over, Squirt. Let me do it. I'll have this wagon out in no time." The billy goat strained forward, but to his surprise, he got nowhere. Berloy checked his pocket watch. There wasn't much time left. He was about to give up when he heard a new voice. "Allow me," said a plow horse coming across the field. "This'll be easy. I spend my days pulling." But even the plow horse couldn't move the mule. Berloy tugged at his ears. It was almost time for the ball to begin. He looked around and saw a large ox lumbering toward them. "Everyone tune up. Here comes someone who can pull us out." "You're saved," roared the ox. "This poor plow horse means well, but only I am strong enough to pull a bandwagon full of musicians." He twisted the rope around his horns and gave a mighty tug. The animals held their breaths, but the mule wouldn't budge. The clock in the tower started to chime 8 o'clock. "Oh no!" Burloy shouted. In desperation, he pulled his bow across the strings, and to dismay he heard zum, zum, buzz, buzz. The musicians turned to look at the buzzing double bass. Out of the bass shot a very angry bee. He'd been disturbed once too often. The first thing it saw as it flew out of the bass was the hindquarters of the mule. Zzz. With one giant sting, the bee made the mule jump to his feet and pull the bandwagon of musicians out of the hole, down the road, and into the village square before the bell had stopped chiming. The audience roared. "What an entrance!" they cried, as the orchestra, already dressed and tuned, began to play. Zum, 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 zum. It was hard to say who had more fun at the ball, the musicians or the dancers. Burloy had never played better. "Encore, Burloy, encore!" Burloy came forward. "Thank you. And this evening, I would like to dedicate our encore to the buzzing bee." Now, we're going to read Meet the Orchestra. It is nonfiction and is listed in the 784 section. The author is Anne Hayes, and the illustrator is Carmen Thompson. The orchestra plays tonight. The audience has arrived. The musicians are coming on stage with their instruments. What a lot of different kinds they play: strings, woodwind, brass, and percussion. Players with like instruments sit together in families. The violin belongs to the string family, along with the viola, the cello, and the break string bass. I have a violin here today. Right here. Now, I'm not a raccoon like the character in here, but I do play violin. You play all of these with a bow or pluck them with your fingers. The violin is the smallest of the stringed instruments. Its song can be as bright as laughter, light as air, soft as a whisper, or sad as a tear. Viola. As instruments get bigger, their voices get lower. The viola looks and sounds like a big brother to the violin. Has a deeper tone, reminding you of evening shadows, cloudy skies, and the color blue. Cello. You can't tuck a cello under your chin the way you do a violin or a viola. It is so big you must rest it on the floor. The cello's rich, mellow voice speaks of deep feelings like joy and sadness. It can remind you of the calm beauty of a drifting swan and of the color purple. String bass. The string bass is the grandpapa of the string family. It is so tall that you must stand up or sit on a high stool to play it. When bowed, its low notes moan and groan. When plucked, its booming sound helps others musicians keep the beat. Flute. The flute belongs to the woodwind family, along with the piccolo, oboe, bassoon, and clarinet. Here is a flute right here. You blow into these instruments to play them. At one time, all of them were made out of wood. Today, the flute is often made of silver or even of gold. To play the flute, you hold it sideways, tighten your lips, and blow across the air hole. With practice, you can trill like a bird or play slow, quivering notes as cool as a mountain stream. Piccolo. The piccolo, little sister to the flute, loves attention and always gets it. This tiny flute is so shrill you can't help hearing it. Its high notes almost pierce your eardrums. Yet everyone loves the piccolo because it has such a great sense of fun. Oboe. The oboe has a mouthpiece made of reed. The reed can be fussy and troublesome. Then it honks like a goose with a bad cold. But usually the oboe can be trusted. The oboe plays that single note to which the whole orchestra tunes just before the concert begins. Its voice may remind you of faraway castles at sunset, autumn leaves, and the sadness of saying goodbye to someone you love. Bassoon. The bassoon is like a large folded oboe. It also has a reed mouthpiece. Its voice, like its name, has a kind of loneliness. Yet the bassoon can also be playful. It chats and chuckles with the other instruments. You often hear it chugging along like a tough little engine. Can't you almost see puffs of smoke coming out the top? Clarinet. Here are two different clarinets. The straight one is nimble and quick. Here's one straight one here. It tootles up and down the scale, never tripping over a note. Its cool tones melt in your ears, just like ice cream melts in your mouth. This very long clarinet is bent at both ends so that it doesn't touch the floor when played. Its long, slow notes may remind you of clouds drifting across the moon or of a snake swaying to a snake charmer's music. French horn. Make way for the brass family, the powerhouse of the orchestra. Even when they play softly, you can sense a huge cat crouched to spring. The brass do not have reed mouthpieces. Your lips buzzing against the metal mouthpiece produce the sound. The tubes of the horns magnify it, as a bullhorn magnifies the announcer's voice. The French horn is like a big, bright bell at the end of a long, thin tube. The tube is coiled so the horn can be played with one hand on the horn, on the valves, and the other inside the bell. The hand inside softens the sound. Uncoiled, the French horn will be reached all the way across the room. Someone would surely trip over it. The French horn has many voices. It can calm you with its gentle tones or thrill you with its gallant hunting call. Trumpet. The trumpet's shorter tube makes it look easier to play than some of the fancier brass. But is it? No, say the trumpeters. You must work just as hard to learn it. The trumpet's call is noble and exciting. It reminds you of flags flying, soldiers marching, and royal persons entering a great hall. Tuba. The tuba has a huge bell and a very long tube. Do you remember that the bigger strings have deeper voices? This is true of the horns. The bigger ones make lower sounds. The tuba seldom carries a tune. It is more of a rhythm instrument. Its umpas help the brass to keep the beat, just like the thump of the bass does for the strings. Timpani, or kettle drums. The big kettle drums sit in the kitchen or percussion section of the orchestra. Everything that is beaten, banged, dinged, or pinged belongs there. Have you ever heard the orchestra rumble with the sound of distant thunder? Suddenly explodes with a boom, boom, boom? That is the timpani. They look like big kettles sitting side by side. Each has a slightly different pitch. You beat rapidly from one to another, making the thunder crash and fall. Cymbals. The cymbals look like a pair of pot lids. When banged together, they crash with the fury of an electric storm. If the kettle drums give you the roll of thunder, the cymbals give you the flash of lightning. Hear them ring out just when the music reaches a peak of excitement. This is a proud moment for the whole orchestra. Piano. When you sit down at the piano, The black and white keys make your fingers want to dance. From on the center you can play them all. The high ones on your right, and the low ones on your left. When you hear a murmuring of noise burst into thundering chords, then fade into silence, it is probably the voice of the piano. When it is over, you may want to clap, or perhaps even cry. Now we meet the conductor. He is often called maestro, which means master of the orchestra. There he is, for he leads the musicians at all times. He does it most by talking with his hands. In his right hand, he holds a small stick, the baton. With it, he beats time. His left hand motions, you play now, be quick, listen, louder, soften. Ah, that's perfect. A raised eyebrow says, you're playing off key. The musicians have taken their places. The strings, who are by far the largest group of players, sit in front, almost filling the stage. The woodwinds sit close together at the center. The brass and percussion are in back. The conductor strides on stage in front of the orchestra, raises his baton. Music, start. The orchestra played tonight. Now it is time to go home. Like the voices of their instruments, the musicians drift off into the night. Our last book is fiction. The title is Because. It was written by Mo Williams and illustrated by Amber Wren. Because a man named Ludwig wrote beautiful music, a man named Franz was inspired to create his own. Because many years later, people wanted to hear Franz's beautiful music, they formed an orchestra. Because a man had practiced since he was a kid, he was asked to join. Because a woman studied night and day, she too was asked to play. Because many others loved and practiced their instruments, there were enough musicians. Because someone created a poster about Franz's music, tickets were sold. Because the train conductor stopped at the train at the Grand Concert Hall, the orchestra conductor arrived. Because the orchestra librarian had copies of the score, the orchestra rehearsed. Because workers checked the lights and the seats and swept the floors, the grand hall was ready. Because the time had come, ushers opened the doors. Because someone's uncle caught a cold, someone's aunt had an extra ticket for someone special. Because the usher helped the aunt and her special guest, they found their seats. Because everyone was there to hear the beautiful music, it was quiet. In row C, seat 14, sat the girl with the uncle's ticket. She heard the beautiful music written by the man named Franz, and it changed her. The girl was changed. From that moment on, the girl learned everything she could about music, because it fed her. Soon, she started to write music too, because like Franz, the young woman had something to share. Over time, the woman became very good because she worked very hard. One night, her music was discovered because she was also very fortunate. Then she was invited to perform her music at the Grand Concert Hall because so many people wanted to see it. Her composition was dedicated to the uncle in row C, seat 14, because it was his ticket that brought her here. And that night, someone else was changed. That is how it happens. Which book about the orchestra is your favorite? I like that book too. Next week, we'll get the dirt about, is this a violin or a fiddle? Until then, be sure to get the dirt at your local library.